moving from a ship that lost its fame when it sank to one that created a legend with its own demise. A ship that the Nazi German Navy looked to as a war winner, the pocket battleship.
Deutschland class pocket battleship. Displacement 16,200 tons. Propulsion 8 MAN diesel engines producing 56,800 horsepower. Speed 26 knots. Range 9,000 miles at 19 knots. Protection maximum armor 5 inches. Principal armament 6 11-inch guns. Crew 1,150.
After the bloody battles of World War I, the Allies all signed the Treaty of Versailles, which tried to prevent Germany starting a new capital ship race by limiting her ships to 10,000 tons displacement and mounting 11-inch guns. But in May 1931, Germany flouted the treaty by launching its latest fighting ship. Called the Deutschland, it was the forerunner of a completely new class of ship known as Panzer Schiff, or pocket battleship.
It's interesting the ship was laid down before Hitler came into power, and it stretched the Versailles Treaty. It shows how far Germany was already interested in moving to a more military standing.
And it was this military standing that the pocket battleship stood for. Armed with 6 Krupp 11-inch guns that could hurl a 739-pound shell nearly 40,000 yards, and capable of a top speed of 26 knots, made this class of battleship a fearsome fighter. By 1934, 2 more Deutschland-class ships had been launched, the Admiral Scheer and the Graf Spee.
The whole thought process behind the pocket battleship, and the one that frightened everyone, was the fast enough to run away from everyone and powerful enough to smash their way into a convoy protected by a heavy cruiser.
The secret of the pocket battleship's speed and power was the innovative design of making the ship lighter. By using diesel engines instead of steam turbines and an electrically welded hull, the Deutschland class was able to cruise over 12,500 miles, equal to halfway around the world. It sent shivers of fear throughout the Allied navies.
It had pretty good speed. It had a weapons package that made it very tricky for any cruiser to handle, and enough speed that it could outrun pretty much any of the existing dreadnoughts that are still around.
With the outbreak of World War II, the pocket battleships were ready for action, and the Graf Spee was the first to go into combat. Her principal role was to attack merchant shipping, and along with her 6 11-inch guns, she also had 8 5.9 and 6 4-inch guns that made her a formidable raider. In the first 3 months of the war, the Graf Spee had sunk 9 merchant ships totaling over 50,000 tons, furthering the reputation that this class of German battleships were invincible. But on December 13, 1939, that reputation was put to the test when 3 British cruisers outside the Uruguayan port of Montevideo cornered the Graf Spee. In what was called the Battle of the River Plate, the Graf Spee knocked out all the guns of one cruiser and seriously damaged the other 2. But the Graf Spee had a major design problem. Her armor was just 5 inches thick and was not protection enough against British 6 and 8-inch shells.
Graf Spee, although she had quite large guns, was very lightly armored along the lines of a light cruiser. It never intended to take on a ship of similar weaponry that she had.
Badly damaged, the Graf Spee limped into the port of Montevideo for repairs. But Uruguay was neutral, and after 48 hours insisted that the Graf Spee should leave or be interned. Unwilling to let his badly damaged ship fight another battle against the waiting British warships, the Graf Spee's captain scuttled his ship and committed suicide. With the end of the Graf Spee also came the end of the myth that pocket battleships were invincible.
Like all ships, at the end of the day, it was vulnerable. It was vulnerable to being outnumbered. It's all very well to be big and able to outrun or anything it couldn't outfight, but it could still get cornered.
By war's end, the 2 remaining pocket battleships, the Admiral Scheer and the Deutschland, renamed the Lutzow, were also destroyed. But during their brief lives, all 3 had demonstrated that they could hit hard and scare the enemy. So for fear factor and firepower, they score well on our matrix. Innovation is good, but protection and service length lets them down. So the Deutschland class gets the number 9 spot in our top 10 fighting ships.